small business development. Hey, Kristen. Health promoting services, and the grocery store. So it's almost 6:40. So shall we view the video now, unless someone has some comments they want to share at this time? Okay, Danny.
Please let me know if everybody can hear it.
No,
I can't hear it.
no audio.
Yes, now I can.
I can't hear any audio from it, Danny.
No.
No, no audio.
Okay, give me just one moment, everybody.
Yeah. Click those boxes in the bottom left corner of the share window. You have to stop sharing, and then when you go to select the window, there are two open boxes in the bottom left corner.
Two open boxes in the bottom left.
Charmaine, I'm so glad you're back.
I'm so glad to see that.
Sorry.
While we're waiting, and Danny, let me know when you're ready. Louisa, do you want to say anything as a preface to this? Or you just saw it and thought it would be good to share? You're on mute, Louisa. You're on mute.
I just found, I was watching it and, it just sounded, it was unexpected when he moved into food deserts from what he was talking about. And it just hit me that he was such a powerful speaker that I thought that it may be something we could use. So I forwarded it to everybody.
Well, you were right, and I'm glad you did.
So, and I'm surprised and glad to hear you put it in the meeting tonight. But while we're waiting, I think we really should be putting more pressure on the city to make this a more of a priority item. That healthy food really, really matters. And that they're not. The mayor's Dunkin' Donuts Park, how much money did they spend on that? Why can't they spend some money on the Healthy Hartford Hub and make it really a place where people can go and get healthy food and, a beautiful building and a place where people want to go?
I think that as we gather, as we gain more knowledge and as we gather data, we'll have the platform to make the case more effectively. And this will certainly help. Kristen, and the work that she's been doing is giving us the leverage that we need to have those conversations. So I think that we're at a dynamic jumping off point now that the work has been done, getting the city to acknowledge the need, bringing Bergman on, getting that process started. I think we're as Mr. Hester said at the beginning of the meeting, this has been a long time coming, but there's a lot of things, in this one of the things that he said in this video, and it's not a spoiler alert, I'm just agreeing with the statement. I don't believe in coincidences. And I believe all of this stuff is coming together for a specific purpose, for a specific time. And we definitely are in the right place at the right time, doing the right thing. So yeah, more to come. Okay, Danny, you ready?
Actually, Jennifer just joined us, so maybe she can speak about the event, and then I'm figuring it out right now. I think we're almost there.
Awesome. I'm so sorry, guys. I was actually in transition and trying to make it back to the house. I tutor a little girl at the Y on Thursdays. Oh yay, how pretty is that? I know that place. So the Stowe. The Stowe is a concept I came up with a family member of mine in an effort to, I don't know if you guys know that I own a little red truck and it has turned into a mobile book truck. And so the idea and the concept is bringing the bookstore to the block. And so I bought a red truck, I bought some books and literally drive around whenever I can. It's hard to find a kid outside nowadays. And when I see one and they're with their parent, try and sell a book like an ice cream truck. And so it's a mobile book truck that operates during the warm months in New England. And so as a means of continuing that work through the winter, I wanted to host a couple pop-up sessions. And so I partnered with Swift Factory to be able to utilize space that is earmarked to be the Hartford Public Library to provide an opportunity for not only myself, but like-minded business owners, entrepreneurs, folk that are just testing the market of color to be able to have a Black marketplace. So we started on the Small Business Saturday, took it over, rebranded it, called it Black Business Saturday. And that was our inaugural event over at Swift Factory. It got such a buzz and it was so successful that we said we wanted to do another one before the holidays. So on the 18th, we are popping up again at Swift Factory, a little bit bigger, a little bit better. Going to have a couple hours of holiday shopping and fun. At this particular pop-up, we are highlighting youth businesses. So front and center at the event, there'll be, I think about 8 to 10 youth business owners that are going to be selling their goods, which is going to be really, really cool. And then additionally around there, there'll be a good 20, 25 other vendors that are sharing their goods and or services. Excited to see Charmaine on the line. So she and her husband will have their business featured there at that event. So you'll be able to kind of see what she does with her family business and then quite a few others. And so I also was reserving some space for community-based organizations to be able to come in and to share what they've got going on for the community. And so I reached out to Danny to see if we would be able to offer the opportunity for the CADF to share some of the beautiful literature that has been developed to kind of talk about what we're doing as an organization and to be able to spread that word and that knowledge with people from the community that attend the event. And so that's the opportunity. There'll be a 6-foot table made available for the CADF if you guys wanted to utilize it to be able to spread the word in whatever fashion you want. Danny mentioned maybe having some crafts and some fun things to do with kids during that time, but your table is your own. I don't know if Danny's able to man the table, but we have a full staff of our group of folk who are on the CADF who may be able to volunteer and piecemeal the hours together. We're there from 12 o'clock to 4 o'clock with a setup time from 10 to 11 to be able to kind of get yourself situated and ready to rock and roll and receive the people. But we put you in a good space in the room to be able to just share what we're working on. So I wanted to offer that to the CADF.
Thanks, Jennifer. We're definitely going to be there. Danny has a prior commitment. But I will definitely be there, and I'm looking for
Yay.
volunteers who are willing to join me.
Hey.
So,
So
after the,
Denise and Danny, do you think you're going to need materials like printed or something before that?
yeah, so the last one that we missed because anyway, there were some printed materials that we did try
Oh,
to
cool.
get done, but it didn't happen quickly enough. So we're working on that now, Martha, the same thing. So folks, what we're talking about is a couple 18 by 12 poster boards that will, table, and then the handouts, for each neighborhood, and the larger handout, the handout that speaks to the entire Northeast area, that will be one of those larger poster boards. So Danny was talking about crafts and stuff for activities for kids. That's not exactly my forte, but well, it'll be great.
So, so if there's, just let me know how we can help. Yeah, I don't know if you have any of kind of like not the poster size, but the other handouts from, or were all of them used at the Friday morning
We
event?
still have them. We still
Okay, you
have them.
still have them.
We,
So let's
we will
talk
need
about
a few more though,
okay,
but
so
I'll let
let's,
you know.
yeah, sooner, yeah. If like maybe tomorrow or Monday.
Yeah, we can
figure
definitely
something
do
out.
it tomorrow, right, Danny? Uh-oh, I put her on the
Yes.
spot. Oh, okay.
Okay,
No,
perfect.
yes,
Okay.
but also Martha, you already would have those files. It's just the
I
same
have
files
the
that I sent you
files. I just
before.
need to know kind of like, do we need 5? Do we need 10? Whatever. And then the
Okay.
poster stuff, I don't know what your plan is for doing that.
We
Yeah,
had
I'll
reached,
touch base tomorrow.
okay. Okay.
All right,
sounds
perfect.
good. All right, so we'll be ready
Okay.
for the 18th, right?
18th. And so
Okay.
Danny, I'll send you a link. That link, if you can just fill that out, you don't have to worry about the fee associated with it. Just fill that out so it's on a formal place for my team to be able to download and know that you guys are there, and reserve a table for it. And then we'll go from there. But I'm excited. I wanted to make sure I extended the opportunity to you guys to be able to share with whoever walks through the door, whoever will listen, because I know I try and scream it out from the top of my lungs to whoever's listening about what we got going on. So yeah.
So and congratulations, Jennifer.
Thank you. It's so much fun.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm excited about it.
Jennifer,
Okay, so
if anyone
sorry.
else, will we want to participate or kind of get on your radar for the next time you do it?
Yeah, I still have 1 or 2 tables left. If you're Jahida, you have something, if we can talk offline.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I think we might all be on group email together. If not, then I can grab from Danny.
Okay, that'd be great.
I can actually, I'll put my email in the chat, and then that way whoever's interested can, if we don't got room, we'll make room. Y'all know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody. So I'll make sure my Caddiff folk have a space in the place.
Great, thank you.
Just squeeze it on down.
And Jennifer, the event on the 18th is reserved for youth entrepreneurs, I think you
No,
said?
it's for anyone. I was just highlighting
okay.
So it's for all
Okay.
all folk of color to be able to do their thing.
Okay.
And so intentional in that way, but the youth are just being highlighted for that day. Like I'm situating the tables such that they're like right in the center of the room. And those are the profiles that I'm highlighting, like on Facebook and Instagram, to be able to have people be intentional about coming out and supporting the kids. But there's going to be all kinds of vendors all around. And so I'll be sharing those vendors as well, but really wanted to uplift the babies for right now. But anyone's open.
These
But I'll
are
put my
exciting
email.
times.
They are. I'm excited about this. It's the holidays. It's something to be happy about,
Ready, Danny?
Okay, let's see if this works, everyone. If not, I am so sorry.
All we can do is try.
I'm Hawk Newsom. I'm the president of Black Lives Matter New York, and apparently I'm a human rights activist.
Can we hear it?
The question that I
Yes,
want to pose
can
to
hear
you is, why do people say no to ending racism? There are many ways that you can say no. You can shake your head, you can outright say no, or you can say no through your inactivity. For years, actually centuries, Black people have been oppressed here in America. And most good people with love in their hearts say, I want to help you. I want to help to end racism. But at the end of the day, they don't show up. I could give a speech to you today and wow you and motivate you, but will you carry that message outside? Because I see the bigger picture. I see more than just black and white. I see love and I see hate. And what we're experiencing here in America is people who have hatred in their hearts are out mobilizing and out organizing the individuals who have love in their hearts. I want to tell you a story. About 3 years ago, we marched from New York to Washington, D.C. It was amazing. There was about 100 of us. You had black people, Jewish people, white people, Muslims, everybody marching, holding signs, singing songs, saying what? Black Lives Matter, saying end racism. Everybody stood together in harmony. We slept in mosques, we slept in synagogues. It was beautiful. On the 8th day of this journey, we were at a church in Baltimore, and we heard that Freddie Gray died. Could you imagine? You just walk 26 miles a day, you're sore, you're achy, you're fighting for justice, just to hear that another black man died in police custody on that day, in that city, when the mayor just met with you the night before and said that would never happen here. So we heard that people were rioting at the precinct, and we as organizers said, let's go over to this precinct to calm people down and show them how to react the right way. So we started our march, and we had this chant, and it was called Off the Sidewalks and Into the Streets. Off the sidewalks and into the streets. And I'm out front. There are about 5 police cars with us. There are helicopters. There's news reporters everywhere. Fox News was there just in case we messed up and did something crazy. But there it was. Older people were getting off the sidewalk. Kids were jumping into the streets with their bikes, and we're marching. And I see these people across the street, 3 brothers walking. And I'm like, what's up? We're all the way down from New York. We're marching for you. Why aren't you with us? They start crossing the street. And one of those brothers are nudged by a car that was coming. And he ran and he opened the door. So I jogged over from the front of the line. I said, no, brother, this isn't the fight. This isn't the way we do things. Let's march with us. Let's go to this precinct. Let's let our voices be heard. And he kind of looked at the driver, and then he walked and he joined me. I don't believe in coincidence. I believe in God incidents. That was Freddie Gray's brother, right? And he marched with us there. So we get to the precinct. We calm people down. We're standing outside. We're chanting. And a car pulls up. It's a squad car. And he says, that's him. That's the cop that killed my brother. So we walk over to the car. The police officer rolls down his window, and he goes, and Freddie's brother says, what did you do to my brother? What did you do to my brother? The officer looked us all up and down and laughed. He laughed in our faces. This officer who killed his brother looked at him and laughed in his face, and then he rolled his window back up. This is what we're facing. This is our reality. This has been our reality since we were lynched and hanging from trees. And what I'm saying to you is that your tears and your prayers aren't enough. We need your action. We need your voices. Don't just tell people to vote. Tell them that they need to vote for what? Vote to end police brutality. Vote for equal rights. You have to get active. And whenever we start talking about Black Lives Matter, people say what? What about black on black crime? Oh God, I hate that term, right? Say violence in the community, say anything else, but they're saying blacks are killing other blacks, and that's the leading cause of death. But let me tell you what takes more black lives than any other black person, and it's called food injustice. Do you know that food and beverage companies spend $10 billion a year targeting poor communities, trying to get them to consume poisons, right? Soda companies, fast food companies. And to tell you the truth, I grew up in the South Bronx, hardworking Christian family, and my dad got sick. My dad actually died on his 7th heart attack. And a lot of that was because of what he consumed. We didn't necessarily know how to eat, but we couldn't afford to eat good food. We lived in the South Bronx, which was a food desert. So here we have it. People are eating, they're becoming obese, and these companies are running chemical tests to get people addicted to food. Their food sent to poor communities that have the ingredients modified just for those communities. And then we turn around and say, look at you, you're fat. You made this choice. You're killing yourself. In actuality, these people are hooked on these foods. Food injustice is real. And why aren't you hearing about this? Because companies like Coca-Cola or Pepsi donate to the NAACP. Some of the most famous activists receive money from these companies. So when you hear the term systematic oppression, it is very real. It is so real, and it attacks us from every angle, and we need help. Yes, we're organizing our communities, but let's face the facts. Minorities are the minority in this country, right? And it isn't until the majority of people care enough to do something about it that change will come. Do you have love in your hearts? Do you love your neighbor? Do you believe in the Bible, the Quran? Do you believe in your religious teachings? Because I guarantee you, all of them tell you to help your neighbor. The time has come for us to stop standing around and allowing people to die. 5 centuries of death without any justice. Are you going to be the generation to say enough is enough? Because I'll tell you this. Many of you say, if I were alive during the Holocaust, I would have done this. I would have done such and such. If I were alive during slavery, I would have done such and such. We're living in similar times. And I tell you that you're doing the same thing now that you would have done back then. And you have the ability to change it. God bless you.
Okay, so as I said, we are going to reserve our discussion for that brief video at the conclusion of our I don't know, Fernando and Eddie, if it's a conversation, but Fernando Betancourt is the executive director of the SINA. And sorry, I do it every time. You know, just expand the scope of your, yeah, okay. San Juan Center. And most of you in the meeting have met Fernando already. He's going to talk a little bit about the vision that they have for the Sacred Heart Church property. And Eddie Perez, former mayor, is a consultant on that project. So Fernando, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening to everybody. Thank you for the opportunity. It's interesting. Life goes in circles, I guess, in a way. The San Juan Center started in 1957, organized at the basement of the Sacred Heart Church. And now, 2021, we're contemplating the possibility of acquiring the church and going back there to our roots. When you introduced Mayor Perez, I have to tell you, Eddie is a product also of the San Juan Center and that link with that church in particular. And he knows much more about the history and the link with the San Juan Center that even I know. So I prefer to yield to Eddie to start this conversation, and we can tell you more about what we have, our vision for the entire community, but that particular corner there in development and other projects. Eddie.
Well, thank you. Thank you for inviting us tonight. I can't get used to this Zoom line meeting. I love to see people personally and be able to interact. So look forward when this is all over. We're going to make it simple in order to allow for questions. But what we're proposing to do is we want to be able to purchase the church and over the next 3 to 5 years, begin immediate programming at the church on twofold basis. The first one is that we would plan that it would, one of the things we need to do is move our headquarters from the current site at Pleasant and Main. You know that we already rehabbed the space upstairs for apartments, and the Semilla coffee shop is there, but there's additional retail space that we think would be better for a community-based Black or brown business to be there. And we would relocate all of the current San Juan Center operation in the rectory, which has office space as well as some residential space. We would use the church space. I'm very familiar with the church. I was a member of the church for 42 years before it closed recently. And I grew up, I went there when I was 12 years old and spent a lot of time not only with the ministry of the church, but equally important with the youth development strategy. At one time, at the high point of we used to have a staff of church staff of about 12 people, 17 lay people, and over 700 youth that used to work in various church programs, largely during the summer. And we ran a Head Start program as well as a tutoring program, all out of the church when we were at the high point, and probably one of the few points where the community gathered and developed. One of the biggest activities that happened at the church was that we were the place where we recruited the first bilingual teachers from the island to come here, relocate here, and get trained. And all of the training happened in the basement of the church, which has ample space. That's where we used to run our Head Start and tutorial program. The plan is for San Juan Center by the fall of 2022 to begin a second part of an expansion, I guess is the best way to say it, but a whole new effort around a cultural center and museum for the Puerto Rican diaspora.
My phone, so I could join this other meeting, please.
One second, Eddie, if you wouldn't mind. Could everyone please mute your speakers while our guests are speaking? Thank you. Go ahead, Eddie.
All right, so what we were planning to do is we're going to be developing a 3 to 5 year programming for the church around running cultural center programming and museum activity in order to document, archive, and celebrate the history of the Puerto Rican community, beginning in Hartford expanding into Connecticut, New England, and across the country. We already have begun discussions with our sister organizations that will be part of this in Chicago, New York City, and Florida. Those are places where the community is either older or equally as old as the Puerto Rican community here in Hartford. In order to do that, what we would be asking the hub committee is to allow us, the San Juan Center, to allow us to step in the step of where you're at, allow us to exercise the option you have to acquire the church. We hope to acquire the church and not ask for an extension or even negotiate price. We would just exercise the option. What we need to do immediately is we're planning to do a facility study in order to give us an idea of the condition of the church and what we might need to do over the next 6 to 9 months in order to be able to move the San Juan Center in by the fall of 2022. We already have, I'm reaching out to the normal institutions in the city of Hartford so that we begin collaborating so we could begin programming within the year. We would start programming with an emphasis on connections to the higher ed institutions that some folks are already doing historical and archival work within our community, and there's already pent up interest in that area. And of course, one of the target audiences we have is to educate young people in our city about our culture and our what we've significantly have contributed to the history of the city of Hartford. So that's short term. Short term is a real estate deal. We're going to San Juan Center. Fernando and I have been working to expand our portfolio, and every deal that we've done in the last 6 years, we've been able to complete it or get it financed. As you know, we just got selected for the Arrowhead project, but we've been managed. I want Fernando to talk a little bit about the other properties that we hold. So real estate is not new to us, and development of community programming is not new to us. This would begin with a local scope in Hartford, but we plan to have national connections to the cultural and historical museum that we plan to incubate at the site. Obviously, if these things grow, we would have other facility needs, but this is, we think we could make use of this facility at least for 10 years. So I'll stop there, have Fernando follow up, and then we could take questions. Fernando?
Well, if I was intelligent enough, I would say good evening and leave now because everything has been said, but we're here to answer any questions, Denise.
Before we move on to the questions, Fernando, talk a little bit about the development scope that you have for the Arrowhead area that is the focus of attention for the CATF, please.
Okay. Before this was announced, this is around 2013 to 2015. The San Juan Center created a development plan of this area that we call Gateway North. And the reason why we call it originally that is because we see this, what is called now the Arrowhead, this connector between the north end of Hartford and what used to be called Downtown North and the business district. Now, as you know, because it has been public announced, we created a partnership that we call Gateway Partners LLC with the Caravetta companies, and we competed and we responded to an RFP issued by the city. and we have been selected as the preferred developer to do what they call the Arrowhead project, which is the still standing only historical building on that corner, the former Arrowhead Cafe, and the adjacent parcel where we are proposing to create a bigger building, which, by the way, in the 1990s was owned actually by the San Juan Center before it was burned. It was tumbled down. So that's the real initial scope. We have been in conversations with the city where there's a possibility of making this project bigger, but we are still in the analysis process. As you also know, the city engaged another firm from upstate New York, Bergman and Associates, to do a study of the entire area adjacent to the Arrowhead and going north on Albany and Main Street. And we also have proposed to the city what we call a wealth creation initiative, that everything that we do is what we call black and brown projects. And what we want to do is to create 100 opportunities for home ownership in the Clay Arsenal district. So that's another project that has nothing to do with the Arrowhead. And if you have any other questions now, remember, I am hesitant because this is a partnership, a public-private partnership with the city. And I don't want, I cannot say a number of things in public until the city makes the announcement. But that's basically what we envision.
Okay, all right, well, thank you so much. And just referencing the fact that the San Juan Center initially referenced this area of the city as Gateway North. That's what we have always called it, the gateway to the north side of Hartford. So we agree in our perspective that this is very significant for the well-being of the citizens of Hartford, who previously have been disassociated with the power, the decision-making ability. I will entertain any questions at this time.
Denise, let me say another thing. It's very important. Everything that the San Juan Center does is fundamentally with the community participation. In other words, we don't develop a project and then announce it by the time that it's being created. What we do is we have gone to the Clay Arsenal NRC, we have gone to community meetings, we have gone to public forums. So we try to expand as much as we can to the community so they know what we are trying to do. And this tonight is another example of that.
Well, this is about your third or fourth time with us. Yes, yeah.
Yes.
So I guess my first question or comment would be that the Sacred Heart building is a very large space. How do you envision, I mean, the overall, say 3 years from now, how do you envision, what would it look like and what type of programming would be taking place there?
Actually, very small space. We would probably grow out of that space in 5 to 7 or 8 years, because part of the, so the answer is, we've looked at, we actually have been thinking about this for about 7 years now. So the discussion is not that we're thinking about the church, and we were interested in bidding on the church, actually, and we didn't offer, not a formal offer, but we're in discussion with the realtor prior to the city and the deciding that they wanted to hold on to the church and not, so we didn't go forward with that. So the church is, the space, we will use the space for the basement, mostly for community programming. The rectory, we would use that for office space for San Juan Center, and a entity that has been working on the National Museum side of things to help us raise money and develop the programming. That will be a sister organization under San Juan Center. San Juan Center would own the building, operate the building, and use it for all its community programming. Short term, one of the ideas that we have until we actually raise money to undertake a historical and rehabilitation of the sanctuary is that we may rent the church to two churches. Not one is a storefront church, one is a mainline church who needs space. So we might rent the church space for 3 years and do all the community programming in the basement because the basement is a good space to do all that. It has office space, it has bathrooms. So what you would see for the first 3 years is mostly activity under the umbrella of San Juan Center, increased cultural programming, and beginning the development work to reconfigure the sanctuary into an exhibit and archival space for traveling exhibits that we think we could have here, similar to what the Chatterell Cultural Center does, and what I can't think of the name now. Fernando.
Which one?
The art group on Arbor Street.
Artways.
Huh?
Real Artways.
Real Artways. The way the space that Real Artworks currently is, that's what we have envisioned to use the church temporarily if we don't rent it out. We may rent it out short term because it from a real estate point of view, we would need to carry the church for 2 or 3 years before we raise the money to redo the sanctuary and make it a performance and exhibition space.
And Denise, at the center of one of our efforts, like the one that we just finished on the corner of 1283 Main Street, is the preservation of historical buildings. Anytime that we have the opportunity to do that, we do that. The same thing with the Arrowhead Cafe building. These are structures that sometimes are abandoned for 20, 30 years, and we want to keep a track record of historical preservation. And the same applies to the church.
Okay, so thank you. And so that's the community space on the lower level and the sanctuary. And then the second and third floor would be what?
You mean the second and third floor of what?
No, there's not a second and third floor.
So there's the sanctuary, and then the second and third floor that you're referring to, that's actually the rectory.
That's correct.
Yes, that's correct.
It's a rectory building. It has offices and a dining room and a kitchen in the first floor.
Yes.
And then on the second floor, they used to have 3 bedrooms when the priest used to stay there. But we would probably use all of that for office space. We wouldn't use that. And that would be what San Juan Center occupies now. And one office will be dedicated to the museum cultural arts component. But the community space, what I call the basement, because that's what we refer to, is, and we have already looked at what other people have done with other churches in terms of the space. It is a little expensive since we plan to do historical restoration, and the heating plant and those things, the heating and cooling and the roof, all of the structures are tired and haven't had any real investment. But I know the building very well, and we have already anything we do. We have a capital needs study that looks at the life cycle of the building for the next 20 years and what we would need to do it, we also are in discussions with an architect and engineers about what we need to do short term. Keep in mind, short term is a 5-year window, long term is a 25-year window. And
So let me interrupt you and go back to your 10-year statement. And that was that you expected to grow out of that space within 10 years?
yeah, I know that we would need additional programming space. And for example, if we did what we hope to do, we would have to find an offsite for archival space and for storage. We can't do a lot on the current site when it comes to that. We don't anticipate that would be a big need in 2 years, maybe 7 through 4 and beyond. So we would probably have to have at minimum some kind of storage warehouse space and maybe additional education space. This space
I see.
cannot hold
Okay.
a large conference. It's a good example.
And our concept is to do it by phases, but if you look long term, if we were successfully doing that national museum at the scale of a Smithsonian, what we're talking about is anywhere between 55, 65, 75 million dollars total investment to make it to fruition. You know?
For that space,
Well,
for that space.
for that space and perhaps the adjacent parts of that we are looking into it. The one because
The adjacent parcel facing the building to the left or to the right?
Main Street, facing Main Street.
I'm sorry?
Facing Main Street.
Facing Main Street.
And the only reason for that, whether it's there or somewhere else, these museums, once you start receiving donations, exhibits, and all that, the space goes very fast. And it's not what you see or what people see when they enter into a museum, but everything that you have to storage.
Sure, of course. Martha?
Hey, this sounds this sounds fascinating, and I love a long-term vision. But considering the stuff that we've talked about as part of the Healthy Hartford Hub for like the last several years now, does food and health kind of like figure into your vision of what is of what that, even with the programming, is there a connection there?
Well,
go ahead, Fernando.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Yeah, Martha, that if we were doing some of that work, it would be under the San Juan Center core mission. And Fernando has been working with the board beyond that. What we're talking about here, at least short term, is the cultural and historical aspect of the community. So we have not talked about some of the programming that could go on the San Juan Center that Fernando has been thinking about expansion. So San Juan Center is a multifaceted organization and does advocacy and provide other services. So there is room to do something there, but not, this wasn't, we were not thinking about creating a supermarket, or we weren't thinking about safety programming, because that's what San Juan Center does as part of their normal work.
And Martha, I want to be very candid and open and honest about this. One of the things that we are limited to do is based on our resources, because if the question is, would you like to have healthy food available and a number of other programming that will benefit our community, that's easy to answer. The difficulty is how to manage all these resources. And look, for example, we have identified a long list of services that are not provided in the next 2 miles from that neighborhood. And it's not necessarily about food or other choices. The list is very, very long. So there's a lot of work to do. And as you know, it has been very challenging to come up with a strategy and everybody can agree on whether it's a supermarket or a grocery store or any other projects of that nature. So I don't want to create false expectations that the San Juan Center with a magic wand can develop that.
Yeah, and I think of, based on my prior experience, we can't be all things to all people. This is uh, the headquarters for the San Juan Center with an added cultural center and historical museum piece to it. And we are going to be able to use this as a historical site, connect with the work that they're doing at the Kinney Tower, the Asian Terran House, the stuff that goes on the cemetery, all the historical stuff, but not necessarily. We don't have a food desert strategy as part of the San Juan Center mission currently. No.
However, if you look at it as a macrocosm, when you look at the one that we created on our first floor, the Semilla coffee shop, look at the different vendors that do not have their own place, and now they're selling their products there. So in that regard, it's not only healthier, but also it's opening for community opportunities as commercial development.
With regards to the Museum and Cultural Arts Center, nationally, how many, or are there any museums dedicated to the Puerto Rican American experience in the United States?
No, there's a smaller museums that change and vary, whether you start in New York with the Museo del Barrio or many others in Chicago. What we want to do is Puerto Rican diaspora museum, as opposed to a combination of all Latino cultures and nationalities represented in this museum. There's one at a larger scale being passed through Congress that is called the Latino Museum, because if you have been to the African American Museum, which is beautiful, well done, with great taste, and it's unbelievable. The experience there is unbelievable. Well, there's the risk is that when you go and try to do everything for everybody, then you start doing the small pieces, and then the Peruvians get upset, the Colombians get upset, the Hondurans. I mean, you see what I'm saying? So this one, it wants to recreate and archive and preserve the contributions to Puerto Ricans in the United States. But it's national in scale. But it will be here in Hartford, but it's national in scale.
And so, if I understand your answer correctly, this would be the first and only one
in the United States. But again, it would be the only one and the first one. But I want to emphasize, this is not intended to be only a museum in Hartford about Hartford community. This is a national.
Yes, I understand.
Yeah. Which we also look at the benefits of creating more tourism if this gets to be built the right way.
Thank you.
Let me say something about that. There have been a couple of starts in New York City to create this effort, and those folks came to us. They came to Connecticut and asked us. We've been in discussions with the folks in New York City, and their work that has gone on probably for at least close to a decade. We've incorporated that work already, and I was just in discussions with folks at the National Museum in Puerto Rico. There's a couple museums there as well, so that while we are going to be doing a lot of local community programming in our incubation stage, if you may, and that's why we need a 3 to 5 year plan for modest improvements to the current facility, and then a bigger renovation and plan and preservation plan that will include the all the mechanical improvements that need to make and making the space handicap accessible. That's a big challenge that we had at the church.
Yeah.
And we've talked to some folks in Norwalk who have done a wonderful restoration of a church that had to handle the handicap access. So those issues are all issues that we're prepared to tackle.
Okay. Do we have any additional questions?
Yeah, let me ask you, let me just be clear about what we would like your group to consider. The first thing we'd like for you to consider is to endorse the concept that the San Juan Center would acquire the church, move its offices over there, and begin the incubation of the cultural art museum effort at that church. The second thing, and that you allow us, and that's a clear ask to ask the archdiocese to let us step in and exercise your option. That's the first thing. The second thing is, my understanding is that you may have the ability to help us conduct the capital needs assessment for the existing building. So, because we don't have that, and we would like to have that in the next 30 to 40 days, so that, come February, we're in strong negotiations with the archdiocese about purchasing the building under the current contract. So those are the two steps that we're asking for you to consider based on our initial discussions with Rex about what might be possible short-term. And that's our request tonight.
Louisa, did you have a comment?
No.
Question? No? Okay. All right. Well, thank you both for joining us this evening. We will take this up and get back to you in hopefully.
Mañana.
No mañana. No mañana. Pero pronto.
Pronto bueno.
All right. So thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah.
Have a good evening.
Thank you. Okay. So we'll follow up with further discussion. But I do want to use the time that we have left in the meeting to revisit that video that we watched. I'm going to give you folks some time to digest this, and we will follow up with a dynamic discussion at a later date. This
I was
is
gonna
for
say, we're gonna speed
information-
past that like it didn't just happen. Are we really gonna speed past that like it didn't just happen?
Information purposes only. Okay. So you don't want to speed past it, I take it?
I mean,
I
I don't necessarily, we can speed past it, but can anybody else exhale? Like, I need to exhale. Like, can I have initial reactions to
I'm
make
sorry.
sure?
You know what, Jennifer, I'm sorry. And that's not fair, because I have had an opportunity to digest this previous to this meeting. So I'm not being fair to you. And I apologize for that. Let's take a beat and exhale.
Good idea.
Yeah, first and foremost, I know I took a short break. I'm excited that that folk of the community are a part of this, and so it's exciting. But that was a development that I didn't.
Yeah,
I don't know if I saw it coming, but I saw
the
it
thing
coming.
that took me by surprise is that they've been doing similar work at the same time. And so San Juan Center is as invested in their project as we are in our project. And as chair, my challenge is to find a way to mesh our desires in a way.
That was the point of my question, Denise. That's why I wanted to hear their reaction to, like, I think they kind of interpreted it was where we asked, us asking them to open a grocery store. No, it's more, my question was around connecting to the concept, the broad concept that this group has developed around a healthy Hartford hub, which can be all encompassing. And it wasn't clear to me that there had been any thought about that connection.
Well, Fernando is the only person who has attended our meetings and has a sense of what it is that has a sense of what our goals are. And so Eddie's focus is obviously what he's been focused on for the last 10 years.
Mhm.
And again, I think to remind, and this is why I kind of wanted to step back and not address their immediate asks right away, to reaffirm what our objectives and what our vision is for the Arrowhead, North Hartford Gateway area, because we've been having these discussions for a number of years. And I think it's clear that the San Juan Center has been connecting with community members and getting an assessment of what the needs are of the community. And we have as well. However, they've been dealing with the NRZs and we have been dealing with a different, can I say, demographic or population group. And so, when one of the things that's very clear to me is that the Healthy Hartford Hub initiative is the hub. There are lots of spokes in the wheel. There are lots of things going on, but I view our responsibility to make sure that all needs are met at the same time, not one or the other. A rising tide lifts all boats. And that's the goal. So it's not necessarily to say, no, we visioned a community center that would be for all a multicultural art center. If that's not what would be best, I'm not going to push, personally, I'm not going to push the initiative, but we need to have discussion about, and we need to have substantial discussion around what we are willing to assist the San Juan Center in doing, because our option is up in March. And what they're asking is to take over our option so that they don't have to wait till March, because then they'll have a lock on the building.
Right. And so, and that's the piece of it, because I was just a little nervous with pushing this conversation off because they were looking for answer within 30 days. And
No,
we don't meet
not,
again. We don't meet again within 30 days. And I just didn't want a unilateral decision to be made without having a full-on conversation.
There won't be.
Okay. And that was my only thing, like
that, that we have not operated that way in the past, and we're not going to start now. And unless we can come to an agreement about what it is that we want to see, then we won't move forward, which is why.
And I'm really excited that San Juan has made it this far in the process. This is a Black and brown community, more brown than it is Black. And to see San Juan be able to take over some of these projects and be able to be named as developer hits me in the heart in a way that's really, really awesome. I think.
And let me say, Fernando, sorry, Jennifer.
Yeah.
Fernando has been a servant to the community for decades. And so, the position that San Juan Center has established themselves is well earned.
Yeah,
and there's no reason why, the city brought them on as developer, and rightfully so.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I don't know if I personally am comfortable with, because he said it, you try to be all things to all people, and you have a cultural center dedicated to the preservation and recognition of the Puerto Rican community, which is
Needed.
needed. But then the
Mhm.
Colombians and the, the Peruvians and, the Cubans get upset. So here I am focusing on developing a multi-ethnic community within the scope of the Healthy Hartford Hub. Where does that sit with our initiative? That's my concern. And I'm just not, I guess, thank you, Jennifer, for not allowing me to speed past that, but that's where I'm stuck.
So what's the next step, Denise, from your perspective? How does this progress? Does it wait till a January meeting? Because I don't think that timing is what they were actually looking for. What do we do?
So here's the thing. They're gonna have to wait.
Mhm. But just like you said, Denise, I think they are gonna have to wait. They just had to start having the conversation tonight.
I mean,
And
this
we're
is,
clear. Yes.
so if you heard Eddie,
Yep.
they've been working on this project for
Yes.
years.
Yes, they have.
And because the CADF has engaged Bergman and pinned the city down so that the city's accountable to more than just the folks that they know. Now, we've had an option for at least 3 years. San Juan Center has been working on this project for more than 3 years. A month is not going to make a significant difference if the option as it stands now expires in March. We can let them know in February, once we've had a chance to fully discuss and come to a determination as to what it is we think is in the best interest of the folks that we represent. And that's the entire community. And is it in the best interest of the entire community to have that project in that space? Possibly yes. Possibly no. We have to determine that. And if not, then what? Right?
I think that's a great question. And the other part that I would want to kind of like
and before you add on to that, and then if not that, then what? I asked the question, would they be agreeable to expanding their scope? And I got a very clear response.
Yeah, no.
Go ahead,
But one of the things that it was not a huge focus of their conversation, but this whole notion that in a few years they're going to outgrow the space that they don't yet have, which I thought that's an interesting perspective. But the other piece of it is that they're talking about the whole vacant lot there. So that they are thinking about, which is the Main Street lot, the long, narrow one along Eli Street. So I'm all the more reason, and I think that understanding where how does this conversation move along, and I agree with you, Denise, that would take the time that's necessary to do it right, but all the more reason, if it isn't just the church, but it's the rest of that property, how does that fit in with the overall vision of a healthy Hartford hub?
And keep in mind, I don't know if we mentioned this, it might have been in the agenda. Bergman retained a retail a company to do a retail market analysis. And that report will be ready for our January meeting. So I think that tabling the conversation until we have more information about what is viable for that area, I think is appropriate. Once we hear from the folks who have done the research on viable retail opportunities, and as a reminder, we've talked about having home occupied homeowner space, retail space, walkable playscapes, a dynamic neighborhood where people are interacting with each other. We also talked about there's the conversation with the Chamber of Commerce about making that area sort of an entertainment destination. We don't need more bars, but a destination for families that includes cultural activities, or, you know, I love museums. I don't have a problem with that. I love museums. And that's where I used to hang out when I was a kid. Those are the types of things that people want to come bring their family to. If we have a dynamic neighborhood where all of those things are incorporated, I think that we've met our objective. But how do we get to that goal? And how do we fold in all of these visions into the larger picture?
I just want to call attention to, there's a question from Joanna in the chat.
Would you read it out, Martha?
Yeah, I'll read it. It says, okay, I want to know when they are associated with the South End Neighborhood Association, why are they going for this space? I feel like this is an agenda that is aimed at displacing, I don't know what, the C Black community in the area. But it is, San Juan Center is already located there in that neighborhood, there across the street.
Thank you for the question, Joanna. Clay Arsenal is actually predominantly Hispanic. And that's the NRZ that's closest to that gateway area. The gateway is actually opens or enters, gives entrance into the promise zone. I live in the Northeast neighborhood. But you know, I think Jennifer mentioned Hartford is 54% Latino, 35% Black. We are a city that is diverse in an unusual way, if you will, if you look at urban centers. And so I think there's room for that conversation. I just want to make sure that the concern I have is that we don't replace one type of segregation with another. Right? That's, and if we're working together as neighbors the way we have in the Caddis, and we can bring that vision to the Gateway Arrowhead area, then I think we've met our objective. So I think if you look at, I read something years ago that said a Puerto Rican boy going to school in Hartford lives the most segregated life of any child in this region. Right? So there are I'm talking about poverty, racism, culturalism. It's Black and brown is an issue. And although there are organizations like the San Juan Center and the Artists Collective and you know, a variety of the West Indian Cultural Center. There are a variety of organizations working to better the lives of specific people groups. Our charge as a CATF is to make sure that all those voices are heard, right? And that's why I'm struggling a little bit about this project being located here. But if it's not here, what better place? If we look at what's the best for the residents of our city, I can see why they would want it there, right? So then the question is, if yes, then what else? No, the plan, you're right, Joanna, the plan is not inclusive of everyone who lives in the Clay Arsenal area. But to be fair, when Jackie McLean and Dolly McLean started the Artist Collective, they were specifically focused on the African-American experience in Hartford. And I think it's fair.
Yep, and it's absolutely fair. I'm with like I think that wasn't the piece of it that like it's the thought of the expansion down there, the road and like the other pieces.
But see,
and I think more space will give more opportunity to be more inclusive in theory. And I don't think the uplifting of one culture is at the loss of uplifting others, and there is a moment to be had where someone can be unapologetically intentional about preserving the history of their people, and that was so my thing is not necessarily that piece of it. It's the timing of it was like the 30 days and like speeding past the conversation was more so the reason why I wanted to stop, pause, and have the conversation quickly so that it wasn't like a, hey, can we squeeze this meeting in and have this conversation because they need a response, and are we being good partners and being responsive in a timely manner. But as I think Fernando and Eddie would be respectful of the desire for the CATF to want to take a beat and have an intentional meeting in and around this conversation with the other information that's forthcoming so that it could be a really, intentional response to them. But yeah, I mean, this has a place. Like, I'm not mad at it at all because, even in state service, we've done some work in and around the health and equity outcomes of women of color when giving birth. And we've found that Puerto Rican women are experiencing right there underneath Black women that disparity and that horrible numbers with regard to death and complications after giving birth. And a lot of people push back with us being intentional about saying Puerto Rican women. And so I respect it. And there's a need for this particular community to be able to share their history and share what's going on and their contribution to this country. I just think we should just have a little bit of time, and they should respect that. But I'm with it. But more information in hand and an opportunity for us to digest it, and we can move on. I just wanted to like pause and say, oh no, we're not trying to make a decision.
No, and I appreciate that because I think that that this was needed, and better to have this part of the conversation prior to the January meeting so that we all know what the expectation is. And also so that we can be clear. One of the things that I take very seriously is my role as chair. And the CATF is not going to agree to anything you folks don't know about. That's just not going to happen, right? And so there might be some minor things about, we'll go to this fair, or we're going to print out 100, and that's just the working. But anything that's going to impact the direction of the CATF is going to be involved in the direction that we go to. That's my role, right? And so that's why San Juan Center won't get an answer before the end of our January conversation, because we haven't had a conversation yet, and we don't have all the information we need to be able to say, we agree to this, we agree to this, however, we have some concerns. What are your thoughts about our concerns A, B, and C?
Can we ask for something written in the interim when you respond to them and say we're going to need some time to think about it? Because I don't know that we have anything written to kind of stand on and to review with regard to their proposal, even if it's a one page or that kind of bullet.
I
you
think
can
that
see.
they, so I can't speak to Eddie because this is my first time having any interactions with him on this project, right? But I think that Fernando has been moving circumspectly because he was trying to get a sense of what our objectives were, or if we had any objections. But he is part of the, and he mentioned the fact that the city had signed a contract with San Juan Center and the Carabetta Group to be the developers on this project. And so they are working with Bergman, waiting to hear from Bergman what the recommendations are. But those recommendations are going to come out of the conversation that are being facilitated and prompted by the CADF. Prior to that, based on my understanding of tonight's conversation, the plan was for San Juan Center and Carabetta to develop anyway.
Okay.
CADF, if you recall, we were instrumental in forcing, if you will, or requiring, prompting, I'll say prompting, the city to go outside of their internal operations and bring in an external organization that would do an assessment of what the community wanted and what the community needs. And subsequently, the city signed a separate contract with Carabetta and San Juan Center.
Okay. So that project in the church, though, felt very specific. There were goals, outlines, a plan.
All before we came on board. They had their eye on this property before
I get that. So do you think they have a document that they can share with us? Because even having a conversation further in January without, like, if we said we want to hold on to it until March and then make it go back in, and we might decide to have it go and extend for another, what are we saying no to?
So what's your, okay. All right.
You get
so
what I'm saying? Like, and it has something, yeah, so that we have something to look at to be formal about what we're saying yes and or no to. If they want the endorsement by the CADF for the use of that church, then like, what are we saying we endorse? Because it was just Eddie saying what Eddie was saying.
There's another thing, I think that Kristen's comment in the chat, I think, is important to this too.
Yes.
Her question is, has the ship completely sailed for adding a stronger food and health component to the San Juan project? Maybe they can see more potential with some input from the CADF. I mean, that's the part that bothers me most, is that I love their vision of what they want to do, but it just seems very separate, when in fact, I think there's an opportunity to link it. And I think that could even be more powerful for them and for the hub if we, yep, they don't want to think about food. It kind of sounded like that, but but it isn't just food. It's health. It is health promotion. And these things are not mutually exclusive from a museum and programming.
Well, I would have to agree. Because from my perspective, when you start talking about culture, you're talking about food.
Ooh, thank you. I thought so too. But that's why I was like, let's see what it exactly is. Because Eddie was just talking, not like that, but Eddie was just doing a lot of talking. Fernando had it seemed like Eddie has vision and Fernando has the structure.
Yeah.
And so Fernando to share the structure of what it is, it could very well be, and he was like, I'm showing you an example, it's here, I put it into here, I put it into there. And so I'm really thinking that Fernando has the structure and the capacity to kind of think about where it fuses into the plan that they have going on, where Eddie's kind of single focused on what have you. And so to have them articulate it and put it into a one pager for review at our next meeting may give them an opportunity to exactly what Chrissy said, like review and revisit, read the room and kind of see what needs to be added on there. And then we hold their feet to the fire, given permission to like the blessing to go forward.
Yeah, because Eddie kept saying, you know, the programming, I don't know what the programming will be. Well, some of the programming will focus around, you know, yeah.
It could very well be, and he's not showcasing what it could be. And it sounded like Fernando was trying to get in there and cut in and share what was what, but it just wasn't happening. But Henry, Mr. Hester, you had something. I'm sorry.
You know, but I think we're asking the real question as being a dreamer like Eddie, you know what I'm saying? And being a person here like Jeff Stewart, you know, details. And I think you're doing the right thing, asking the details as to how do we fit? Where do we go forward? You know what I'm saying? Because we can't just doing the dream stuff. We need just what you were saying, that one pager kind of give us some kind of foundation that we can feel good about the decision that we are trying to make.
Can I cut in? Did I hear wrong, but did he say that some of the space that they're using for the San Juan Center in the Arrowhead building could be used for more businesses, especially for colored people, Black, so that by moving, they would free up space in the Arrowhead building.
Yeah, well,
so we should know that too. Just what exactly they, you know, the trade-off is, or.
Okay, I'll ask him some questions and ask him to put something in writing. Kristen? Kristen, is your hand up?
Yeah. It was. Sorry, guys.
Uh-oh.
Bring the baby back in from the car. I just wanted to just agree with all that's being said, and I agree on the detail that's being discussed in terms of the asking about that one pager. I guess just to add some context to my note in the chat, I too appreciated, you know, the initial question from Martha of like, what does this have to do with the vision of the CADF kind of in translation? But while I would encourage the group that as the one pager is coming and as they come back with a more formal proposal as you guys are pursuing, that you also think about this as an opportunity to share your vision and one or two practical things to connect with them, right? So to not just wait on what is their vision for you and how you fit in, but just in terms of, you know, laying the stage for other organizations who want to come to the CADF for an endorsement, to come with the heart of how can they also then help your vision and what you're trying to do. And there may be tidbits of the hub that can be aligned with, the project, right? And not steal the thunder of the hub completely, as Denise, you always say, or it's about multiple projects happening at once. But what I always hear every meeting from this group is that the entire, you know, vision of the area is meant to be health promoting. So at the very least, not having something, any aspect of their project be the opposite of that. So maybe there be, you know, one or two things that while you're waiting for their vision, that you guys envision what you would want to see from them for the endorsement to be, you know, for you to want to endorse it. If it's too much of a connection, maybe that's not right the direction. So just a suggestion.
Thank you, Kristen. You know, I keep going back to the Healthy Hartford Hub initiative and the focus that the CADF has on a full service grocery store and whatever that looks like, health promoting services. And for me, health promoting services, we had this discussion at our last meeting, it's about more than clinical services. Because if you don't have a healthy emotional connection with the community that you live in, then you're not going to have a healthy lifestyle, if you will. So health promoting services, pointing people to proper nutrition is one thing, but health promoting services, I'm reminded, I used to do presentations in elementary schools, and I remember talking to some students at Sand Elementary School back in the day. And I was explaining to them that this was a class full of Black kids. I think there were about 2 Puerto Rican kids in the class. And I was, at the time, we used to use the term minority, right? And so I said to these, I don't know, 3rd, 4th graders, that minority, when we're talking about social groups, does not mean less than. And it was a mic drop moment for those kids. I mean, they literally sat there with their mouths open because they had never heard anyone say to them that just because you are in a minority number wise doesn't mean that you are less than anything else. And so this is the type of dynamic social structure that we're trying to create because it doesn't exist. And so I think that that's the focus that the San Juan Center has for the people in their community. And there's a perspective that they're going to have for their community that I don't have because I'm coming from another community, even though we have shared experiences. And so I don't think that when we have a conversation about changing social structures, that when we're not talking necessarily about what food is going on the table, that we're excluding health affirming services, because that's why our focus is also on Black and brown businesses. Because if you can't afford to buy healthy food, if you don't have access to healthy food, and if you don't feel safe getting to the food, I'm starting to preach, I have to stop. You're on mute, Jennifer.
Yes, I know. I'm like, this the choir. I'm the choir.
Oh, okay. I got an amen corner, everybody.
I'll be off key.
I passed the plate.
Right.
So Denise, is Danny going to yell at you for going over again?
Probably.
Sorry, Danny. I started to mess.
No,
Danny.
you did a good thing. I mean, we needed it. We needed it because I was not comfortable. I didn't know where to go. I needed to sit down.
I would be in favor of, for a January agenda item, and I'm not like I'm
Go ahead, say it.
To go ahead and watch the TED Talk again and to revisit that the questions, wanting to have the discussion about that, because I think that it's even more important in view of kind of like, of the conversation we did have. So I don't want to pay that short shrift. That's an important thing. And it would be valuable to maybe start the meeting with that next time and the discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if we started with that, then we need to give Bergman time to talk about their market results. And then the last thing, I'm sorry, who's, okay. And then the last thing would be to follow up on any feedback that we've gotten from the San Juan Center, and also have further conversation and feedback once we know more specifically what they're looking for. Can you guys, give some thought about, we've talked some about what we envision for that space, before we realized that the San Juan Center was interested. So I think we need to, you know, come prepared to talk about yes and, or no and, or yes but. All right. Okay. Anything else before we go?
Yes, before you go, I don't know if you all saw the links I put in the chat for anybody who's not familiar with the Freddie Gray scenario that was referenced in the TEDx. And thank you, Louisa, for sharing that. It was a definite twist on the whole food insecurity story. So he really got my attention, and it was a nice shift that was made. But if you wanted to learn the end of the story about the police, I put a couple of links in the chat that gives you the official version.
I gotta look this up.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Angela.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for your time and feedback and great speaking with you.
All right.
Thank you all.
Awesome.
Thank you.
See you guys at the show on December 18th. So Danny hopefully can send that out. And then I'll have a table set up for you guys and have it
I'll be
reserved.
there.
So I'll be
Thank you.
excited to see you guys. Awesome.
everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
So how was that?
It was better than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I have to say something. I was gonna send an email, but I just want to know. Oh, let me turn off this real quick. Hold on. The recording.
Wait, what?